everyone, and welcome back to Age Perfect Beauty. Have you ever wanted to know what the difference between airbrush foundation and traditionally applied foundation is on a more mature skin? Well, I'm Vicki and I'm a professional makeup artist and I'm 53 years old, and today that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to airbrush. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of how you can do it yourself at home. I'm also going to cover traditionally applied foundation. We're going to take it over stages. I'm going to show you how it initially looks on the skin and how it looks as the day goes on. We're going to do it for both types of applications, both airbrush and traditionally applied. I hope that you enjoy this video, and if you do, please do consider subscribing. Let's get into it. So before we get into this, let's touch base on what airbrush foundation really is. So what it is, it's a foundation that's a thinner consistency than a regular foundation would be, and it's run through an airbrush gun that's powered by a compressor. And it actually blows the foundation onto the skin. So it's done in light layers and you build it up. Now there's different kinds of formulations of foundation that you can use for this. You can use water-based type foundations that have less silicone in them or no silicone in them, and then a higher silicone foundation. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I talk about silicone foundations. I'll probably link one or two of my past videos up here for you to take a look at, just to get an idea of what I'm talking about. Today I'm going to be using a Temptu foundation. I'm going to be using it in the color 002 in Blush Ivory. It's a very silicone-based foundation, which I really like, especially on a little bit more mature skin. I'm going to just start with a little bit of prep work on my skin before we even get into this. I'm going to go in, because I've got some dark circles under my eyes, I'm going to go in with my Becca color corrector highlighter underneath my eye. And as usual, I will link all of this information below for you. So if you like any of these products, you know where you can get them from. And I like to do this before I apply my airbrush foundation, because the whole point of airbrush foundation is that you don't manipulate the skin, which is why it's used a lot in TV and in film work. Even brides that are having HD videos, they really like to have that flawless, when you get all those pixels up in the HD, you really want to see no lines, no marks from a brush or from a sponge. And really you can't be airbrush for that, because it's sprayed onto the skin very finely and built up slowly. And you're not manipulating the skin in any way. So I'm going to be using my professional compressor that I have in my kit and my professional airbrush gun. You don't need anything this grand if you want to do this yourself. There's all kinds of options on the market. There's foundations in spray. I think Dior does one that's a spray foundation you do on your face. I'm going to link Temptu below as well, because they have something called I think it's called Temptu Air, and it's just a little tiny compressor, and you can buy these little pods of foundation that you can use with them, and they're just ideal for personal use for people who just want to do this regularly or for special occasions. So let's get into it. I'm going in with Temptu 002, which is a Blush Ivory. I'm just going to add a little bit of this foundation into my airbrush gun. My compressor looks like so. It's been in my kit a while and has seen its lots of action, as you can tell. I've got 3 different speeds here, and I'm going to go in with the lowest speed so I have control on where I'm putting it. Now remember that this compressor and this airbrush gun is going to blow the foundation onto my skin. So I will be closing my eyes at some point. I don't get it on my eyes because I know exactly where this is going to be directed, but just to give you an idea of what's going to be going on here, because I won't be talking through this. Okay, so let's begin. And as you can tell, that's just, turn off this racket. As you can tell, that's just putting thin layers of foundation. I just build it up slowly. I'm going to add just a little bit more here. Just want a bit more coverage, and I'm going to concentrate in those areas where I want a little bit more coverage. So let's begin. I'm going to bring it down my neck a little bit here. Now you need to give this a minute or two to, like every other foundation, just to get into the skin. And then I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to add just a wee bit of powder, just in the areas where I know this could move if I have a hot flash or anything like that. It has to be set in some way. So I'm going to add just a touch of powder in a couple of minutes once this starts to sink into my skin a bit. And then at the very end, when I'm done all of my makeup, I'm going to just set it with a nice setting spray. I've gone in and I finished off my makeup. I've added a little bit of face spray, setting spray from a company called Hard Candy. I will list this below as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in about 6-8 hours. I'm going to show you how it's settling into my face and the staying power that it has. I'm at this point going to bring the camera in a little bit closer so that you can take a good look at how it's settling into my skin at this point. It's been in probably about half an hour, 45 minutes now. Okay, so I'm back from my 7-hour check-in here. The two areas that I tend to, no matter whether I airbrush or whether I apply my foundation just regularly with a foundation brush or a sponge, the areas on my face that get a little bit dry and patchy quickly are always around the nose area, which is why I tend not to put too much foundation on those areas, and around the Marriott lines as well. So let's see how we're doing at the 7-hour mark. I think you can see a little bit of breakup around the nose, very normal for me. The cheeks are still in decent shape, not too bad. Marriott lines, a little bit is gathered in there. Forehead. Now I know from experience that Temptu airbrush, or airbrush in general, works very well for me and stays for a long period of time, and it does for a lot of my clients as well. It's less to do with the airbrush foundation. It's got to do with how it's applied and how it's slowly and evenly blown over the face, and then it's set properly. I also used a nice setting spray, which I will post down below, and I think that I've gotten pretty good longevity with this. We're on 7 hours now. So you'll see me tomorrow when I do a regular, I'm going to do traditionally applied foundation. I'm going to go with Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk. It's a very similar formulation, a little bit thicker, obviously, than the Temptu, but very silicone-based foundation. So we're going to try to compare apples with apples. Okay, I'll see you soon. Hello and welcome back to day 2. So I prepped my skin exactly the same way this morning as I did yesterday. I went in with my Clarins Super Restorative Treatment Essence. I really like this product. And then I went in just with my basic Neutrogena Hydra Boost for very dry skin. I let that sink in. Today I'm going to be doing a traditional makeup application using Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. I'm going to go in using a foundation brush, very traditional in the way I'm going to apply this. I'm first going to start off, as I did yesterday, with color correcting underneath my eyes using the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector. So we'll begin with that. And just like I did yesterday, just applying that directly onto those dark circles that I've got. Seems to be the way things are for me these days, dark circles. So I'll be going in with my Giorgio Armani in color number 5. I'm just going to dab this in the center of my face and then use my brush to buff it out. Now, if you remember yesterday, I went in with an airbrush gun at this point. So I want to show you the difference between the two finishes. I'll let you make your decision on which one you prefer. Obviously, this is more traditional. So I can say that when you're working with an airbrush gun, that you have a little less control over where you put the product. You have some control over it, but not 100% because it's sprayed in a fine mist. So you layer it slowly. You're probably using a bit more product than you would if you were going to do it by hand. Again, it depends if you're heavy-handed with your application or not. I'm going to go back in now, and I'm just going to pick up in those areas that need a little bit more help. I need a little bit more coverage in some of these areas. Again, I don't put a whole lot around my nose because, as I mentioned yesterday, I always end up getting foundation stuck around the nose area. And the Marriott lines too, for me. And I imagine the older I get, the more it's going to be a problem. Okay. I'm going to give that a minute to sink in. Then I'm going to go and do a very light setting of powder just like I did yesterday. Okay, just as yesterday, I've given my foundation about a minute to kind of sink into my skin. I'm going to go in with the Stila Color Correct and Perfect palette. I'm going to go in with this mauve color powder that I used the same one yesterday in an old-fashioned powder puff. And I'm just going to do a light dusting, pressing of powder so that we can compare apples with apples here. Both of these foundations, the Temptu that I used yesterday and the Giorgio Armani that I'm using today, are both very, very silicone based. Yeah. All right, so I applied my makeup. I used the exact same products, the exact same setting spray that I used yesterday as well. I've linked all of that down below. Let's come in and take a closer look. This has been on for 20 minutes to half an hour right now. Let's see how it settled into the skin and it looks after I've applied makeup. And the Marriott lines, and the forehead. And I will be back for a check-in in 7 hours. We'll see you soon. Okay, I'm back for our final reveal here. It's been about 7 hours since I did the traditional makeup application. It's been settling into fine lines and wrinkles a little bit more than the airbrush, but I'll bring you in a little bit closer so you can take a look. So remember, my areas of concern are always around the nose. I don't seem to lose too much around the cheek area, whether it's traditional application or whether it's airbrush application. But around the nose area for sure. A little bit build up around the laugh lines or the Marriott lines. Forehead seems to have done all right. I think that both the airbrush application and the traditional application both worked very well on my skin. I do think that the traditional makeup application did start to wear off just a little bit sooner than the airbrush makeup did, which makes sense. Airbrush makeup is, finely added and sprayed onto your face. It's layered in a certain way, and it normally does have a little bit better stability than your traditional makeup application. But either one seem to work very well with my skin. I think the key here is make sure you get the right formulation for your skin. For me, I have very dehydrated menopausal skin, so I really like to have a foundation that has a nice glow to it. So I really like the silicone-based foundations, and that's what I used in both both cases. If you're looking for a foundation that's going to last, you know, if it's a special event or something like that, and you need to have your foundation stay solid for, you know, 12, 15 hours, I would definitely go with the Airbrush makeup. But there's certainly nothing wrong with this application either. I was quite happy with it. What do you think? Which one was your preference? And would you ever actually airbrush yourself? Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate you watching and for subscribing. It really means a lot to me. And I really look forward to seeing you next time on Age Perfect Beauty.